Deep in the forests, along rivers, and under starlit skies, something stirs, seen by few, believed by many. From Washington to New York, these first-hand encounters with Bigfoot and the Yeti blur the line between myth and reality. These are the stories that refuse to fade into the dark. Hoax or not, man hot on the trail of Bigfoot. By Darren Samuelson. The Olympian on the Hoh Indian Reservation, Gene Sampson believes something is watching him from the woods, and it's not human. A former commercial fisherman and Hoh Indian tribal chairman, Sampson has spent the past 3 weeks tracking what he believes are 3 Sasquatch. Alongside fellow tracker Bradshaw, he interprets snapped branches and crossed sticks as signs of Bigfoot activity. Their findings have stirred up the long-standing debate between believers and skeptics. Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, from a Salish word, has global counterparts like the Yeti in the Himalayas, the Yowie in Australia, and the Alma in Mongolia. Modern Bigfoot mythology kicked off in 1958 when logger Jerry Crew posed with a large footprint cast from Bluff Creek, California. The legendary 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film followed, showing a large, hair-covered creature walking along a stream bed in Six Rivers National Forest. Though some claim the film is a hoax, anthropologist Grover Krantz defends its authenticity, citing anatomical measurements he says no human costume could match. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, claims their website receives tens of thousands of visits a day and reports up to 10 sightings daily. Investigator John Freitas believes technology has changed the game, allowing experts to respond to reports within hours instead of months. Still, the debate continues. Some researchers, like Krantz, argue that shooting one may be the only way to finally prove the creature's existence. Others advocate a peaceful approach. Meanwhile, people like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Specialist Doug Zimmer, who grew up on the Flathead Reservation in Montana, take a more neutral stance. "I won't say such a creature does exist, and I won't say such a creature doesn't," Zimmer says. "I'll wait until someone shows me good proof." Sighting of Bigfoot was not a joke by M. Hall, Osceola County Tribune, August 26, 1976. It was just after 9:30 a.m. on a quiet Sunday when 13-year-old Dan Radun spotted something strange along the banks of the Ocheyedan River. Dan, riding with his family to their farm 3.5 miles south of Ocheyedan, saw a tall, hairy figure standing near the water. At first he thought he was imagining things. Too afraid to speak up, he kept quiet, until later that day when his parents noticed something was wrong. Eventually, Dan described the creature, around 6 feet tall, covered in black hair with an oval-shaped head. Its back was turned to the road, and it appeared to be scooping water with its hands. The following morning, Dan's mother, a neighbor named Dwight Glade, and Dan himself went to investigate. What they found stunned them. Footprints along the riverbank measuring approximately 14 inches long and 7 inches wide at the toes, spaced 6 feet apart. The impressions sank up to an inch deep into the soil. Sheriff Bob Rolfs and Deputy Bill Koopman examined the site, but withheld comment pending further investigation. Whether it was real or a well-executed hoax, something left its mark along the Ocheyedan River that Sunday morning. Mother defends son's Bigfoot encounter by Mrs. Howard Radun's Worthington Minute Globe, August 27, 1976. A few days after her son's sighting of a supposed Bigfoot creature, Mrs. Howard Raduns felt compelled to write a public response to the coverage. "I believe my son saw what he said he did," she stated. Her frustration stemmed from what she saw as hearsay reporting and a failure to interview Dan directly. According to her, the footprint indentations were real and substantial, up to 1 inch deep in dry soil. And she noted that Dan led investigators straight to the spot the creature had stood. Someone would have had to wear a 400 to 500-pound suit in 100-degree heat to fake this, she argued. Though skeptics were quick to suggest a prank, Mrs. Raduns believed otherwise. "It's always easier to laugh off something we don't understand," she wrote. But for her and her son, the experience was no joke. "I'd heard about Bigfoot. There he was watching me." By Thomas Love. Washington Star, August 1, 1976. Al, a stressed-out professional looking for peace in Oregon's Mount Jefferson wilderness, found more than solitude one June evening. As he sat beside his campfire frying potatoes, his German Shepherd Witch began to growl, a sound she reserved for things she didn't understand. Looking up, Al spotted a massive figure crouched 150 yards away in the trees. "I thought it was a bear," he recalled. But then I realized it wasn't. The creature, which Al now believes was Bigfoot, squatted silently for nearly 45 minutes watching him. When Al finally tried to take a picture, the flash startled it. The figure stood, then calmly walked away. His camera captured only the pine trees. For 5 weekends afterward, Al returned to the spot, leaving apples as bait. They vanished without a trace. Then eventually even the box holding them disappeared. What animal picks up an entire box of apples and carries it off? He wondered. Al remains convinced that Bigfoot is real and that it resides in that forest. He isn't the only one searching. The town of The Dalles, Oregon has become a hub for Bigfoot research, led by tracker Peter Byrne. With help from the Academy of Applied Science, Byrne gathers reports, publishes newsletters, and collects historical accounts dating back centuries, from fur trappers in 1810 to captured creatures in British Columbia. Despite limited funds, Byrne is building a growing case for Bigfoot's existence. It may be a fossil man, he says, or something entirely new to science. An encounter with a Yeti in the woods of New York witness, Fred Renato, June 4, 1984, approximately. Very few people have ever seen a bald eagle in the wild. Even fewer have glimpsed a snow leopard. And as for a Yeti, you could fit every known eyewitness around a single campfire. Fred Renato of Woodbury, New York, believes he's now part of that exclusive circle. At 4 a.m. on June 4th, while sleeping outdoors near Lawrenceburg, New York, about half an hour north of Lake George, Fred had an encounter that still leaves him wide-eyed in retelling. A 34-year-old carpenter and cabinet maker, Fred had traveled upstate to check on properties he owned. Opting for a quiet night under the stars, he camped on a friend's remote land, nestled near a beaver pond and creek. I lit a fire and lay down in my sleeping bag, he recalls. It was on a knob, high ground overlooking the creek. The fire burned out and I drifted off. Around 3:30 a.m., Fred awoke to howling, possibly a wolf or coy dog. It wasn't unusual for the region. But then he heard something else. From a brushy area across an open field came loud crashing noises. I was sitting up and I heard these thuds, heavy footsteps through the underbrush, Fred says. It was breathing hard like it had asthma. I could hear it from far away before I saw anything. What emerged from the dark was like nothing he had expected. A white shape stepped into view, walking fast, breathing loud. It was vertical and huge, about the size of a sheet of plywood. I'd guess around 9 feet tall. It didn't see me right away. Then, it did. All of a sudden, it noticed me and jumped into the air. A big hop, then 2 smaller ones. When it landed, the earth shook. I felt it in my sleeping bag from 50 yards away. Fred bolted. He jumped into his truck, rolled down the window, and stuck his head out. The white, furry figure was already retreating into the darkness. Then it was gone. Though shaken, Fred never felt directly threatened. Remarkably, he even climbed back into his sleeping bag and went to sleep. In the morning, I went to where it jumped, he said. There were huge footprints, about 15 inches long and 5 or 6 inches wide. Fred later tried to contact experts at Yale's Peabody Museum, but didn't get far. I didn't really know what to do, he admits. I told a few people. I was calm, but also amazed. It was the first time I'd camped there in years, and that happened on night 1. The following weekend, the property owner returned to the site and, following Fred's instructions, found the prints. Plaster casts were made and brought back to Woodbury. Fred is aware that his story raises eyebrows. Skeptics call Bigfoot and the Yeti a mythological creature. Others believe he's heard it all. Some people are in awe. Others think I'm crazy, but I don't care, he says. I just as soon they leave him alone. I know what I saw. That's enough for me. Bigfoot steps forth, once again in the Wenaha wilderness. Witnesses, Paul Freeman, Alan Mitchell, and party date of event late July, following June 10th initial sighting. Location, Wenaha-Tucannon Wilderness, Blue Mountains. What began as a peaceful fishing trip into Oregon's Wenaha-Tucannon Wilderness turned into something else entirely, something 6 seasoned outdoorsmen won't soon forget. In late July, a group of friends packed into the Blue Mountains for trout, campfires, and fresh air. But what they brought home was far more startling, a renewed wave of Bigfoot fever. The catalyst for the trip, and the renewed excitement, was Paul Freeman, a former U.S. Forest Service patrolman. On June 10th, while riding through the Mill Creek watershed to keep the area clear of trespassers, Freeman claimed he came nearly face-to-face with a towering bipedal creature stepping off a steep bank. He reported the sighting to his superiors. The reaction was immediate and divisive. Freeman received so much backlash that he eventually quit his job, left Milton Freewater, and moved back to Camas, Washington. But he didn't back down. Freeman vowed to prove what he saw was real. And so he returned to the Blue Mountains, this time with 5 others. The group included Freeman's former boss, Alan Mitchell of Athena, along with Russ and Mike Evans, Andy Ely, and Rodney Bonifer, all experienced hunters and fishermen familiar with the Wenaha country. They rode in on horseback from Timothy Meadow and set up camp near the mouth of Milk Creek. As Mitchell fished downstream that evening, he returned to find the others buzzing. Freeman had discovered large tracks and was already casting them in plaster. "I just said, yeah, okay, and went to bed," Mitchell recalled. "I've never been concerned with that Bigfoot stuff in the past, but the next day would change that." 3 sets of tracks, 1 crippled foot, and no explanation. The following morning, Mitchell and Mike Evans saddled up and headed toward Shoofly Creek. About a mile from camp, they found what would shake their skepticism for good. They discovered multiple sets of giant footprints, 3 distinct sizes, embedded deeply in the mud. "There's absolutely no way those were faked," Mitchell said. "I walked my horse, which weighs 1,200 pounds, through the same mud. He didn't sink as deep as those prints did." He estimated one of the creatures would have to weigh around the same, 1,200 pounds, to leave such impressions. And one of the sets unmistakably showed signs of a crippled foot, exactly like the cast Freeman had made back at camp. The 2 men tied up their horses and followed the tracks for a quarter mile, discovering trampled melonweed and fresh signs that something large had recently passed through. "I'm convinced they were in the canyon when we rode in," Mitchell said. "We spooked them. They ran up into the Shoofly region." Mitchell took photographs, and Freeman added more plaster casts to his growing collection. As for public reaction, Mitchell didn't care. "Print what you want," he told reporters. "I've got proof. Nobody's going to say I didn't see those tracks." From casts to conferences, a scientific turn, thousands of footprint casts have been collected across the Pacific Northwest over the years. Most are dismissed, but these caught the attention of Dr. Grover Krantz, a Washington State University anthropologist, and one of the first academics to take Bigfoot seriously. Krantz called the Freeman sighting of good quality, but it was the footprints that intrigued him most. 2 casts, both of left feet, showed subtle differences in toe positioning, something he described as a very important feature. To Krantz, authentic prints reveal far more than eyewitness reports. "I've always found footprints more convincing than verbal accounts," he stated. He plans to present his analysis at the International Society of Cryptozoology Conference on October 22nd at the University of British Columbia, a gathering sure to draw interest from Freeman, Mitchell, and their fellow outdoorsmen. 6 men went into the forest seeking trout. What they found instead may add a critical chapter to one of the Pacific Northwest's longest-running mysteries. Thanks for watching and diving into these chilling encounters from the edge of the unknown. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unexplained mysteries. Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes on the shadows.